Once again, welcome to Coffee with the College and Career Counselors. We're happy that you are going to be joining us this evening, and we hope that this new school year has started off wonderfully for you and for your students. We're going to get into a lot of information about kind of the expectations, things that you will be encountering as you are assisting your child through this process of applying to college, and essentially like what their plans are going to be for once they leave EHS. All right, so you have two college and career counselors at Edison High School. It is important to note that the college and career counselors work with the school counselors. So essentially, like, we are not replacing the school counselors themselves. Your student will have access to two individuals to kind of aid them if they're a junior, if they're a senior, as they're preparing their college applications. So I will introduce myself. I am Mrs. Rolon. I am your student's college and career counselor if your last name starts with the letters M to Z. I also assist students with Mrs. Rotella that are in the ACES program. I also co-manage our scholarship program, or EHS scholarships, which we kind of delve into a little bit deeper as soon as a new year hits, as well as maintain our international admissions night for students that may be on visas. And we also have Mrs. Jamal, who is our college and career counselor for students whose last names start with the letters A through L. She has also been meeting with the students in the STEM program or the STEM Academy. If you have a student who is interested in going into any of the military branches, she is our direct liaison, as well as students that are interested in going into apprenticeships. She will be joining us a little bit later on in the presentation. So this is kind of a run of show, but we're going to be doing this evening. We're going to talk about some data, some facts and figures from the recently graduated class of 2023. We'll also go into some ways that you can help support your students and kind of prepare for this process and put as much work now rather than kind of catching up later on, as well as some features of SCORE. We'll talk a little bit more about what SCORE is, its purpose in this whole process, and essentially what you as a parent will need to know how to use it or how that information gets shared with you. So first, some data from the class of 2023. You'll see here, I think this is like the top 30 schools that our students have submitted the most applications to. Obviously, Rutgers University New Brunswick is the one that a majority of our students have applied for, or not a majority, but got submitted a number of applications for. We also have Middlesex College, but as you're looking at the chart, there are a number of New Jersey private and public institutions that our students applied for. But what we've noticed in this past year is that a lot of our students ventured out. They were applying to more out-of-state institutions, which from a few years ago, when you're doing the comparison, we didn't get that many. A lot of students were only kind of staying close by. So it was nice to see our students venturing out, checking out programs at different colleges, exploring what's really out there, what's out of Edison, and really diversifying their college lists. This chart also shows where our students received their acceptances. As you can see, again, Rutgers University New Brunswick, that is just, it takes the bigger piece of the pie, followed by Middlesex College, and again, like more in-state institutions. Montclair State University within the last 2-3 years has really been increasing in their acceptances of our students. But as you're kind of going through, you will also see that we have some relatively closer schools that have also been reviewing our applicants and admitting them into their institutions. This chart displays like where our students actually did enroll. You'll see the breakdown. The key is all the way here on the left-hand side. There are some smaller slivers of where students did go. We had a lot of students this year apply to out-of-state institutions, but they also did enroll in some out-of-state institutions. We have students that went to Purdue, Binghamton, UPenn. We also had some at Indiana University. So it once again is diversifying their options. A majority of students, like the number of applications that they typically will submit, has grown over the last few years. We can attribute some of that to test optional policies where students may have felt that their scores would not necessarily get them in, but now that they have opened up or kind of kept that process or kept that decision to be test optional for this upcoming class and even last year's class, it has made the students feel a little bit more confident about applying to more institutions. So it really is allowing them to diversify their list and really think about things outside or institutions outside of New Jersey. So now we're going to cover some ways that you can support your student through this process. It can be a bit daunting, but at the same time, I feel like when you are getting all the resources you need to help make that decision, you will be able to really reap the benefits of just preparing early. It's important when you consider building the college list, or when your student is building their college list, to consider the fit. Now, fit can mean a lot of things. It's all subjective depending on who you talk to. And the fit could pretty much be broken up into these three categories of academics, financial, and community. And so when we talk about what would be a good fit for a student in terms of academics, that can be really subjective on what the student is really seeking out. So academics could be, is this college offering my major? If you're interested, or if the student is interested in research, like what would be the earliest opportunity I can start doing research with a faculty member on campus? It can go as far as even like the class sizes. You know, if your student is looking for a larger university, I watch TV and movies, and this is what I see on TV, like a bigger feel of a campus, a more classic feel, or are they looking for something that might be a bit smaller, more intimate, more one-on-one working with professors? That could essentially be like the academics in terms of the environment itself. There's also financial fit. So financial fit, and this is like important for the parents, because if you're going to put money into an institution, you want to make sure that is going to be the best bang for your buck. So when you're considering finances, how much could my student potentially receive in free money, scholarships, grants? And if it's not enough, like what kind of loan options is the school going to offer? What can I get through the federal government? What are some special scholarships that might be unique to certain institutions? These are all things that you want to take into consideration when it comes to the financial piece. Everybody's finances and their situations are different, but I'm sure that nobody wants to pay everything out of pocket for college. So anything that you can do to help offset that would definitely help your student in the long run. And the other piece is community. And that's especially for students that, you know, who may be living on campus. Maybe they like the big feel of a university at an athletic game. Like our sports program is amazing at EHS. And that might be the same kind of community that your student may be seeking out at their college. So it's important to have that athletics piece. You have other students that are maybe into some niche clubs that exist at EHS. If they want to translate that into the college experience, they're going to look for that. They're going to ask about different student organizations that exist at the college campus that they could potentially participate in as well. Community can also come in together with just the way that you can potentially work within the actual community of where the school is located. Some students are global citizens or feel that they're global citizens. They want to do more than what's just on their college campus. Does this university, does this college offer opportunities to work within the community and kind of grow within the community itself? So those are just some things to take into consideration. There is no rhyme or reason. There is no magic formula. There's no magic number when it comes to building that list. We always suggest that a student can have anywhere between 5 to 8 colleges, but there are students that come up to our desks every day and say, I only want to apply to 4. But we always say, as long as these are 4 colleges that are diverse in terms of competitiveness, in terms of what you're looking for as your major, things like that, we can at least feel a little bit more confident in where they're applying. So keep those little points in mind as your student is building their list. As I mentioned before, this presentation is going to be available. These links are clickable, but here are some resources that you can absolutely use to be able to delve deeper into the college building, the college application list. SCORE. So SCORE does have a search feature that will allow your student to go in and set their own preferences based off of what they're looking for. It could be that they do want a smaller environment, maybe in the city based off of their major, but SCORE can provide, out of the 3,000 plus schools that is on their platform, a smaller list of institutions that they can kind of dwindle down based off of doing a little bit more research. SCORE also does have college pages, profile pages, where the college can go in, give a gist of their college, and kind of entice the students to eventually visit their campuses. This other resource is Going to College in New Jersey. If your student is interested in just staying in New Jersey, or even if you're saying you're not leaving the state, whatever the situation may be, we always suggest that your student has at least one New Jersey college on their list. This resource is wonderful because it outlines all of the universities and colleges that are in our lovely state of New Jersey. It does give a snapshot of each of those colleges as well. Kind of outlines the tuition for each, as well as room and board if your child will be living on campus, some of their premier programs, but it does give you a little bit more familiarity with the New Jersey school, New Jersey college options. College data is, it allows your student to kind of go in, you get the same data in terms of acceptance rates. You can find information about class sizes, and essentially it will allow them to get a little bit deeper in terms of knowing a little bit more about the college. On this page, we found information that you don't typically find other places. So it would be a good place to kind of look at what you could potentially be applying for. The CollegeVine acceptance calculator, that kind of allows students to go in and enter in information that will kind of help project or possibly predict their likelihood of getting into a college. They can put their GPAs in and like some of the activities. So it can give students an idea about, like, is this a reach or a reach institution, a target institution, or is this more a school that's on my safety list? As you're kind of going through the hierarchy of the list and trying to figure out, where should we be, how many reach institutions do we essentially have on this list? This final resource is Jeff Selingo Buyers and Sellers. When you're thinking about the financial impact of college, there's a lot of legislation going around college debt at this moment in time, and a lot of talks about trying to eliminate college debt altogether. And of course, like in our positions, having gone through college, some of us, or having family members having gone through college, debt is a real thing. And I know in that position, you wouldn't want your student to have that kind of looming debt growing as they're kind of going through college. But this particular resource really allows you to kind of understand the perspective of a college and how they are able to support your student. You have institutions that have a name. They're well known. They're able to to possibly give your students some money. But when it comes to the popularity of a school, the name of the school, sometimes they aren't willing or cannot work with you in terms of trying to get you the best offer when it comes to bringing down that total cost of attendance. Meanwhile, you have other institutions that want to work with you, that are willing to bring that price down and are more friendly when it comes to really analyzing where you're coming from, where your family's coming from an income standpoint, to assist you and kind of make that gap of money that you would potentially owe the university a lot less. So by reviewing this particular resource, I think it would be great, because a lot of students get a little hung up on the name. And when it gets to that point, you know, we always want to say, like, pick what is going to be the best fit for you. And if it's the financial piece, if that's a big part of the fit, that particular resource will 100% help you as you're kind of going through. Building the college list and score is also another way for a student to really just kind of figure their thoughts out. I always tell students that maybe it's best to have a little bit of a larger list and dwindle down from there as deadlines are approaching. And what I've been finding is that this generation of students are very fickle. They'll tell me one day that they want to do one major or that they want to go to one college, and then the next day it's a completely different story. But this allows them to track those thoughts. It is a way for them to kind of communicate and allow us to understand, like, where they're at in terms of their thoughts on their college list and where they could potentially be applying. But it is important for you to kind of take that, translate that research that the student has done, and put it into a list that that can be shared with us, as the counselors in SCORE. So this is going to be actually a very interesting year in terms of the financial aid process. And at 6:30, when we have financial aid night, they'll get into a lot more detail about what that's going to look like. If you, as a parent, have had another child go through this process already, you may be familiar with the FAFSA opening up in October. However, this school year, the FAFSA will not be opening until December-ish. The ish is very implied. The ish is very purposeful, actually. At this moment in time, we are not 100% sure. The colleges are not 100% sure as to when the FAFSA will be opening. But in order for you and your family to be considered, or your student, to be considered for financial aid, they must at minimum complete the free application for federal student aid. At this moment in time, there are previews of questions that they may ask, but things are still fluid at this time. Nothing's really set in stone, but the thought is that the application itself will open in December. The FSA ID is a username and password that is composed by the student and by the parent. And since you as the parent a lot of your financial information is going to be used to complete the FAFSA itself. If you do not currently have an FSA ID, it would be in your best interest to go onto the StudentGov website and actually create one. The whole point of this application is that it's free. At no point in time are you going to be asked to pay in order for you to be considered for financial aid. There is a separate form, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that does require you to pay a fee. Some college, but not all, do require that form. It's the CSS profile. It's a form that's through the College Board. So if your student has a College Board account, they may already have access or can log into the CSS profile website. There are certain colleges that even our students apply for that do require that form. And it's very important that you're not paying to send that form to random schools if the school does not need it. So when we're kind of going through the list with your student, we will let them know, or you can do the research as a family as well, to just verify who actually does require the CSS profile. Because the FAFSA is being offered or is not opening until later on, some colleges that have always required the CSS profile are going to be very reliant on this form. So it's important that you complete the CSS at the same time as the application for the most part. These online aid analyzers will, the online aid analyzers, Sallie Mae, College Covered, You Aspire, these tools will allow you to put in information like household size, income, do you have certain assets like rental properties that you own, things like that, that could potentially factor into the money that you will be receiving from a college through or from the federal government. And on the same token, there's also these printable aid analyzers, again, that you'll have access to once you have the presentation, that will allow you to put information so you can kind of understand where you fall in the whole grand scheme of financial aid. It is also important to note that financial aid also includes loans. So that may be offered to your student, but of course we were looking for the grants, we're looking for the scholarships that will allow your student to essentially not have to worry about paying that back. The application process really starts with building your list. If your student has not done that yet, they should probably get on it now. Consider all of the factors that your student would really want from their college experience. And because SCORE is pivotal in terms of just getting information out to the colleges, it is important that the student builds their college list in SCORE. I know from some of the students that we've already been meeting, they're using Google Docs, they're using Google Sheets to kind of keep track of where they're applying. But ultimately, no documentation will be sent out to any college unless it's in SCORE. So if you have a student, you know that they're kind of working on a list, please just encourage them to move everything into SCORE. So that way it's a lot less work for them in the long run. The next piece is test scores. So as I mentioned before, colleges, a lot of them have already said that for this upcoming school year, the year that your students are applying for college, they will be test optional. However, there are some exceptions. There are some states that have still required the SAT or the ACT, regardless of all these other institutions kind of going test optional. So it's important that when your student is doing the research on the college, to find out whether or not that test is required. It is encouraged that your student does take the SAT. The next SAT that's coming up is October, but it's too late to register for. And so it's really important to be mindful of the deadlines of the colleges. If your child does have any intention of taking the SAT or the ACT, they would just have to be aware of, like, will my scores make it on time to report? But at the end of the day, if a student takes the SAT and the ACT and they are not happy with their scores, if they're applying for a test optional school, there's no pressure to send it. I also want to squash a myth that we've been hearing from some of our students. There seems to be an idea that you are more inclined to get, or a student is more inclined to get admitted into a college with any set of scores rather than no scores at all. And I think that in the back of their minds, they may be thinking that the college is going to trick them. They might say, like, you know, this college is going to look at me because I differently or in a negative way because I haven't sent test scores. And what we've been trying to tell the students, and hopefully it's been sticking in their heads, is that there is no bait and switch. If a college is truly test optional, they will not look at a student negatively for not sending test scores. We would rather that your student not send test scores and potentially get in based off of their maybe a great GPA, a number of wonderful activities they might be participating in, than sending test scores that do not meet their middle 50% range, and that being the reason why they are denied. So it is important, like when it comes to the whole decision of should I send scores or should I not send scores, come see one of us, because we don't want your student to feel as if they're obligated to send it just because the college is going to look at them negatively for not sending anything at all. The next piece is applications. Your students should start applying. The earliest deadlines that we've seen are as early as October 15th, but it really depends on where your student is going to be submitting applications. A lot of schools down south have that October 15th deadline because their high schools start a little bit earlier in the year. But we have students that are applying, as an example, to Stony Brook, and their deadline is October 15th. So other than that, November 1st seems to be the early action deadlines at a lot of institutions, or early decision deadlines. So you just want to be aware of those deadlines, be mindful of them, and prepare the applications. Students can apply to colleges via two methods: the common application and the institutional applications. The institutional application just means that the students apply on the college's website. And off the top of my head, the one that's the most common that's institutional is Middlesex. The other one is common application. It's in the name. It's a very common. A lot of, like, more than 900 plus colleges in the United States and abroad are on the Common App platform. Rutgers University, New Brunswick, it's actually their first year on the Common App platform. So it does allow more convenience for your student and less tediousness of submitting or having to repeat information, type information in over and over and over again. It's just a lot more convenient to do everything on the common application. Because it asks for a lot of information, it's important to just start the application now, even if the list is not necessarily final, because you're just setting yourself up in a better position if you're able to at least start filling out parts of the application. And that website is commonapp.org for your students. Another piece, encourage your students not to use their EHS accounts as they're setting up Common App, because they eventually lose access to it. So we always suggest that they use a personal email address or an email address that they've made just for college, so that it's easier for them to have access to it upon graduation. Your student will then be going into SCORE and updating everything, letting the counselors know that they've applied places. That way that the counselors can go ahead and send documentation on their behalf. Your counselor will not know to send documentation for you unless it's in SCORE. So the school counselors met with their students the last 2 days, and they've already been mentioned, this has already been mentioned to them. They know that they need to fill out a transcript release form and put everything in SCORE. It works like a checks and balances, essentially. It will allow the counselor to kind of make sure that they are up to date with where the student is going to be applying and where documentation needs to be sent. Letters of recommendation. If your student has already spoken to a teacher about writing a letter of recommendation, the official request for that letter of recommendation must come through SCORE as well. If your student does not know where to find that, please come see us in the College Center, because we can definitely show them where it is. Even having an agreement with a teacher, if the actual request does not come in through SCORE, no letter will be sent out. So just make sure that they are aware that the official request for letter of recs will come out of the SCORE profile. Financial aid, as I mentioned before, the FAFSA it can be completed in December. As soon as it becomes live, you will have access to it and be able to complete it. The CSS profile, again, that's something that your school may require of you in order to receive a decision. And because of the whole situation with the FAFSA, it's going to be even more important that that CSS profile is submitted in time. And at that point, once the applications are out, you're just waiting. Your student will be hearing back after a few months to find out what their decisions are from their colleges. It It all depends really on when the deadline of the college is, but some students have been able to hear within a few weeks. Other students have to wait a few months to hear back. But it's important for the student to update SCORE as decisions are also coming through, even the ones that they don't necessarily want to be put on SCORE. If it's not a decision that they like, it just allows us to be able to kind of track their applications. So here is an example of kind of like a list of how to track the college options for any particular student. You'll see here, like it can be filled out, or it can, in terms of organizing thoughts of where a student would be considered a reach institution, or what institution would be considered a reach institution target. Because when we tell a student as they're composing their list, you don't want your list to be too heavy on reach institutions. You also don't want it to be too heavy on safeties. It's important for a student to recognize where they fall in the middle 50% of any given school's middle 50% SAT score, ACT scores, or GPA, to kind of find out what their likelihood is of getting into their colleges. But this kind of outlines, like, depending on where they're applying, the data could look a little bit different. Like, for instance, we're looking at Rutgers. This is just a little bit old because that information has gone up a little bit. But if we have students that might be applying for the School of Engineering, that middle 50% range of the SAT might look different compared to if they were applying for the School of Arts and Sciences for a history program. So the school itself may have a general middle 50% range, but it's also important to kind of do a little bit of research and find out if there's a particular school within a university, what that range will also look like. Now, SCORE. Again, like that's the platform that we use in order to kind of communicate with each other about what the expectations are with the colleges. With the colleges and with what the student, how they're progressing through the applications. It allows for you to also do that college search. Another feature on there is the scattergrams. As I mentioned before, we want students to update that information, all decisions that they received. The scattergrams refer to the data that students from previous classes are putting into SCORE in regards to their decisions. Your students, if you pick any particular college's page, you will be able to see students that graduated from EHS and kind of not their actual names, but their profiles, like their GPAs and their SAT scores that they have reported. And see where they fall on a list of all the applicants for EHS specifically. It's helpful in that regard because it allows your student to kind of compare where they are in the caliber of student within our high school. It's harder when you're talking about not like university-wide data, when you're talking about international schools, when you're talking about schools outside of New Jersey. When you're making the data smaller and making the data set a little bit easier to understand, that allows the student to really see, all right, now, based off of where I fall on this scattergram, my likelihood of getting in is a little bit higher than I thought. That might be a little bit more in the safety side rather than where the reach where I thought I might be. So scattergrams are a great feature, but it is important that each year our students go in and update their decisions to kind of give better data for the following classes. We also have college visits that are happening. They've been happening since like 2-3 weeks ago. And so our students should absolutely take advantage of the colleges coming to our school, meeting with our students one-on-one to really learn more about the institutions and their offerings. We also have that calendar will have some special programming that we might be hosting as well. The college visits, like in order for a student to attend, they must sign up and register on SCORE, and they would have to tell their teacher that they may miss class depending on when that visit is going to be held. It is important that if your student finds a college that they're really, really into, that they check that calendar on the visits and deadlines page of SCORE. So that way they can sign up for that and actually be able to meet with the rep. Resume Builder, that's a feature that's on SCORE. Some students have worked on resumes in one of their classes, but it does allow students to kind of filter their thoughts as they're approaching their activities and things, employment, things that they've done outside of the academic piece. The resume feature is something when you put data in there in the profile page, spits out like a Microsoft Word document that a student can actually continue to, if they save it in their drive, continue to edit as
How was
they're
the basketball thing, Mia?
so that is important
Was it?
for the student to go in and use that. It is also something that we've been talking about possibly bringing in for EHS scholarships this
Did
year.
you know anyone there?
If you are chatting, just make sure you're on mute, please. Thank you. The EHS scholarship feature may ask for the resume this year. So rather than an activity sheet, but in
How was
terms
your
of
practice?
kind of like collecting your thoughts for the actual college
Oh, good.
applications, it is hard if you're kind of sitting there and trying to figure out, all right, what did I do for the last 4 years in terms of activities, especially if it's like volunteer hours here and there. The resume builder allows a student to kind of track things and be able to edit it as they're kind of progressing through their 11th grade, their 12th grade year. We've been encouraging sophomores to do it, freshmen to kind of start building it on there. And then finally, there's fee waivers. Mrs. Jamal actually had gone in last week and requested fee waivers of students who may have received free or reduced lunch in years past. Have your students go into SCORE and check to see that they have received that waiver. They just have to sign off on it. It really is a matter of just checking off a box and hitting submit, so that way they have access to those fee waivers. If your student is on free or reduced lunch, or well, if they're on free or reduced lunch, that is the way that they're able to access a fee waiver or get a fee waiver. We encourage you as the parent, your student may not eat lunch at school, but in order for them to get a fee waiver, they must have something in Genesis that will allow us to see that they're on free or reduced lunch. Go ahead and do that application. See if you can get the free reduced lunch, even if your child will not eat lunch at school. We can at least then at that point give them that fee waiver for their college applications. That could potentially mean not paying one dime for any of these college applications for your students. So that would be like one way to kind of save the money. All right. Also in SCORE, what I mentioned before is the actual request for the letter of recommendations. Some teachers are going to request your students to complete the brag sheet on SCORE. It's one of the surveys. It's on the drop-down list. It allows them to see or designate the teacher that they would like to receive the brag sheet itself. When your student is completing it, it is per teacher. So it's not general. They're going to indicate who the brag sheet is for in terms of the teacher. And they're going to fill it out based off of the course that they have taken with that particular teacher. If the teacher knows the student very well, they might not necessarily request this brag sheet, but it is good for the student to do it if there might be a part of them that they don't necessarily know. Maybe they might know them in class, but they don't know that they participate in club soccer outside of school, you know? So different pieces of information that are in the brag sheet can be implemented as part of the letter of recommendation and could help strengthen that letter for the teacher. The other piece, some colleges are going to require a letter of recommendation from the school counselor. And that would mean your student going in, number one, telling their school counselor that they require one for at least one of their colleges and completing something called the rave sheet. The rave sheet is also in the survey section of SCORE. It's about 17 questions. And what we tell students is you have to be very thoughtful in how you're responding to each of those questions and really think about your growth over the last 3-4 years at EHS. Because that's kind of what will be used as part of the letter. Again, your counselor, if they know you very well, they can probably write a really great letter. But if there's a hidden talent that the student has, or they participate in things outside of school and they don't talk about that with the school counselor, they have no idea it's even happening. So if your student is very proud of something, if there's a achievement that they have received outside of the high school, they could definitely make mention of that in the rate sheet itself. And finally, like, it's a way for
Kayla.
the student to also go in and update their admissions decisions. So that way they'll be able to go ahead and let us know, all right, did you get accepted? Did you get waitlisted? And also kind of allow the student to tell us, okay, what's your plan?
Nice,
Where are
Kayla.
you enrolling?
There's like tall and skinny.
We have some upcoming events that are happening at the high school. We have an EOF information session that's coming up on October 11th. It's being held at the high school. We have a representative from Monmouth University coming in to talk about the EOF program. It is a program that is exclusive to the state of New Jersey. So if your student will be staying in state, it would be beneficial for them to at least learn a little bit more about this program. I emailed the students about it yesterday. So please encourage them, like, hey, check your email, see if you got something from Mrs. Rolong about signing up for an EOF information session. They would be getting a world of knowledge in regards to that program, its benefits, and the biggest benefit is the financial piece. They offer grant money to students. We also have our self-reported academic record workshop, the SRAR. A number of schools are now requiring this document in lieu of a transcript. And it's a bit tedious for the students to complete, but it is required. It will have them go in and put in all of the courses that they've taken since 9th grade and the corresponding grades that they received for each course into an online system. The more popular college that asks for it is Rutgers. Rutgers will not accept a transcript from any of the counselors as part of the decision process. So it is important that the student submits an SRAR. Every student struggles with the SRAR at any point in time as they're filling it out. So we have since closed registration. It did fill up and we're so happy that it did. But if your student is not able to attend that workshop, please encourage them to come to the College Center. We can definitely sit with them and help them complete that SRAR to ensure that there are no errors. And that could potentially hurt their application. After tonight, we also have the FAFSA workshop. That's when a representative from HESA comes in and sits with families as they complete their actual FAFSA. This typically is offered in October, but because the FAFSA was pushed back, it will be offered in December. That date might change. Mrs. Muglio will provide more information about that in the next session as to when that date will get rescheduled if possible. And then finally, we have the Middlesex County Regional College Fair through NAJAC Act. That one is at JP Stevens on October 18th. That is open to any student. And what it is suggested that your student create a StriveScan account. The colleges are not asking kids to fill out prospective student cards anymore. They're having them scan a barcode that has all of your students' information. That way they get on their mailing lists and be able to get more information on their schools. I believe it's from 6:30 to 8:30 that evening. So it will be advantageous for your student to go ahead and attend that college fair to learn more about different schools that they might be considering, especially some of the out-of-state schools that aren't really accessible throughout the year, to get to know those reps a little bit better. We have these visits that are coming up. This is just a sampling of what colleges are on slate to visit us for the next few days, next few weeks. The list kind of changes from time to time depending on when the college goes in to register. But as you can see, like we have colleges like Montclair State where their attendees are at 20, that may be the max. Sometimes depending on popularity, that we may be able to open up some seats for them. Mrs. Jamal could open up some seats, but it really depends on the space availability. But this list and more colleges will be in SCORE, again, under the visits and deadline section on the page. And this is more information about the financial aid workshop. On the registration for this event, one of the questions that we did ask is if you are interested in attending that. Mrs. Muglia has that information. So if you did indicate that you would like to participate in that, she will get in contact with you directly about scheduling a time for you to come in. All right, so that's the end of my gist. Let's see if we can go into the chat and see if we can answer some questions.
Hi, everyone. I think that I got to most of the questions like in real time in the chat. If there's anything else that you know that we didn't get to, or some of the threads I maybe didn't completely answer, you want some more, please you know, add some more on there. I think that like there was some confusion about how the SCORE accounts are created. So we create the SCORE accounts for each of the students, and it's really important actually for them while they're in high school to keep that the school email as their main account. It does ask them for a secondary email, and we don't want them to change it from that, because then it gives us some like little snafus with their account. So try to keep their account as their school email account as the main one. They can invite you. I've invited you if you were the primary contact in Genesis. I know that not both parents aren't able to, we're not able to put both parents in at the same time, but you can absolutely have your student add you, or you can just reach out to me and I'll add you as well. So happy to do that. And the parent account can't do everything that the student account can. So parents can suggest schools to students, but because our high school seniors are the ones applying and attending college, ultimately, they're the ones that are able to actually put stuff into the applying and applied field for the school. So, so that's important. So we will be sharing the meeting recording in a few days. I love the question about how to decide what to pursue. That's like a big part of what our job is, you know, so we meet with students all the time and talk about majors and career choices. There are some options and ways that they can explore that through some features in SCORE, and some new features are coming out in the next week or so on that platform. So stay tuned. We will be sharing that soon. And it's always great to like talk about those things with, again, either the college and career counselors or your school counselors as well. So I would say, like, as far as the question on volunteering hours on their profiles, I always say when they're creating the stuff in SCORE and they're just adding a lot of their events and the things that they're doing, add it all in. You know, it can be a huge resume to begin with. And then when we're thinking about submitting it to a school, we're going to pare it down and think about the impact that each of the things that they've been doing is having on the thing that they're doing. So if they're volunteering at like 5 different organizations, but like one of them they're leading and it's showing leadership, that one's going to be more important to include, right? If there's a club that they're a part of and they just attend the meetings and don't do much else, that might be one that we were going to pull out because, you know, they're not really having an impact on that activity. And yeah, we can talk to them about that. I don't think that there's anything that's particularly more important than another. You know, I know a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on honor societies. I would say that definitely falls to the bottom of the list of something that's important to a college, unless it's, again, an honor society where they're contributing and actively being a member and being a leader in that activity. So I would say importance is not on the club in and of itself, but on the impact that the student is making in that club or activity. Important for juniors to focus on doing well in their classes. That's like number one. Don't spend, hours and hours and hours studying for a test. Again, it's less important than it ever was. Are they important? Yes, but it's way, way, way more important for the students to do well in the classes, challenge themselves in the classes that they're taking, and focus on that, and keep, exploring colleges. Just go out there, look at a private college in New Jersey, a public college in New Jersey, see what the difference is, maybe go to a couple of different visits if you happen to be taking vacation in Virginia this summer. That's a good thing to plan a college trip in the middle of it, right? So that's a good thing for them to focus on.
I also think like in relation to the college visits, that college fair is a perfect opportunity to kind of get your feet wet with the college process as a junior, because you don't know what to expect. You don't know like what kind of questions to even ask, but it's a great way to kind of get some practice through the college fair. And juniors can absolutely attend that fair as well, the one that I was referring to at JP Stevens in a few weeks. So definitely take advantage of that.
And it's definitely important for for your kids to start again in their early high school days, and in freshman, sophomore, junior year, and even through senior year if they're not sure. Explore things. Like, that's why we want them to do activities, to learn about themselves and learn about the world and the world of work. There's lots of stuff out there. So yes, definitely think about what's out there. But I think also learn about college in and of itself, and what it's like to be in college. I think 80% of students in colleges change their majors, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like I did you did too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I turned out okay. There's definitely there's something to be said for trying things and failing and learning from that failure, or learning from a misstep. So there's no perfect, okay, he wants to be, or my son or daughter wants to be I don't even know, like a PT, and then they get into that and start studying it and decide, hey, this is not working. This is not gonna be a good fit. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just really important for students at this point to ask for help and figure out who are the people that they can get help from. You guys can definitely meet us. We always like to talk to your students first, but we're happy to meet with you as well. Because again, they're the ones going to college, so we're trying to figure them out first. And you can just send us an email and we'll see what we can do.
There was a question about when we would be talking to the juniors, and that typically happens in starting in January. We meet in smaller groups. For the college and career counselors, the school counselors also meet with the students. We typically start the college and career ones after the school counselors have met with their set of juniors. And based off of the breakdown of the alphabet, we will create, or we'll set up meetings. They'll get passes from us to come see us in small groups, starting in maybe mid to late January. And that goes on into March, maybe mid-March, depending on how many kids we have.
How much we talk.
Yeah.
Maybe go longer. Can parents visit school when colleges are there? Not typically. We really only have enough space. A lot of our visits even already are full for the next few weeks. We don't have enough space for parents. I say parents have lots of opportunities to go, contact the schools if you want. If there's some specific school that you want information on, ask your student to attend and take some notes, or check back in with me. Happy to give you any information on any schools. I think between us, we probably visited something close to 500 schools, the two of us. So we've got lots of firsthand information on that. Students can just drop in to our offices during their study halls or during their lunch periods. We love having them drop by, maybe before school, whatever the case may be. Obviously, they need their teacher's permission, but they're welcome to stop in whenever. And then maybe we can meet with them in that moment, and maybe we set something up for the next day. Kind of depends. Okay, you got, oh no, that's not my email. Sorry, my email.
I'll put it in the chat.
We both got married last year, so our emails are my email's not working. My old email is working still, even though my name has changed. There's another question about activities only on one sport team. Again, it's not about the number of activities that your student does. It's really about what is the impact they're making on it, right? And will it hurt them? No, like definitely not. Some kids don't have any formal activities. Maybe they work after school, or maybe they take care of loved ones at home. There's all sorts of things. Are they sitting and playing? Well, even video games now, I guess, are a thing that like colleges like to see now. But they just want to see how they're spending their free time. I think we're just about out of time. I don't know if there's anything. Our college fair will be in the spring. So look out for information on that. We don't have an I asked for an advertisement for the JP one, and I didn't get it today. So I think they were just super busy. But we can send that out as soon as we get it. I'll probably get it tomorrow. So we'll send that out to you guys. I think that's all I got. I know that we're over our time now. So, and again, the JP fair is going to be on October 18th from 6:30 to 8:30. So be on the lookout. Yeah, and we're in April. All right, let's kick it over to our school counseling friend, Mrs. Cindy Muglia.